Hello. Hello. How are we doing? Hi. Starting with cum in my throat, as we should. Hello. Welcome in. Fuck me. Clearly, this is going to be a fantastic stream in which I'm going to be able to speak. Thanks, Artemis. Anyway, so, hi. I'm sitting here clapping instead of actually doing something, you know, as you do. And I haven't got a fucking clue. Gonna be blunt, not got a fucking clue what I'm doing. I have so little energy. Like, yeah. It's one of those things. I've been off of work for like, you know, the better part of 3 weeks, other than like one day in the middle, but like better part of 3 weeks been off of work. Zero energy. Like, I end up with less energy every day. It's like, this does not make sense. Anyway.
What are
Hello.
you doing in my swamp?
Hello, Tap Tap. Nope, that's the wrong button. Hang on,
They call this the champagne of pain, and I can see why. This has no redeeming qualities in it whatsoever. Ask for it one more time.
Tabbing creepy tabbing creepy degenerates reporting for duty. Tabbing creepy tabbing creepy.
Thank you, Tap Tap, for the raid. And thank you, Cock, for the sub. Hello. Welcome in. Listen, I ignore the BRB on the screen. I panicked and hit every button except the one that I was supposed to be hitting. I knew the stream was coming. Or not the stream, no. I didn't know the stream was coming, to be fair.
They call this the champagne of pain, and I can see why. This has no redeeming qualities in it whatsoever. Ask for it one more time.
Turtle noises.
Thank you, Embums. This is already chaos. Hello. It's been a few days since I've streamed, and I have already forgotten how to do everything. There's no brains here. Don't expect anything of value. I'm just sort of here. This is the beach filler episode though. So you've got that to look forward to. Beach filler episode in like 3 days. Hello, Gloves.
Oh, is that a little bit of pepper?
Hello. Thank you for the bits, I appreciate it. Okay, I can stream. Yes, beach filler episode. Which kind? The
Oh, is that a little bit of pepper?
You tapped it. Are there different kinds of beach filler episodes? Why do I have a... Oh, I'm supposed to go here. I completely forgot about this. Turns out I'm actually supposed to be doing things. Also, yeah, Tap Tap, go enjoy your dinner, because I assume it's probably ready. Or about to be ready. I thank you for the read. I'm assuming, but I'm pretty sure. It usually is. But yeah. We're pretty sure the beach fillers episode is where we get a new person in the team as well. So I'm looking forward to this. So it's just slightly inappropriate. Oh no, we're talking swimsuits and slightly inappropriate moments. Definitely on the slightly inappropriate moments. Thank you for the hydrate. Let's go. Also, yes, welcome in, Pip and Toby. Hello. I forgot to say hello. But yes, so this shop.
I also like to add seasoning at this point. A little bit of black pepper.
Smooches all of you. Saltums, while less than 3.
More less than 3. Thank you again for the biddies. Thank you again for the read. But yeah, this shop basically you can craft weapons with materials that you find in tartar sauce. You know, every now and then you get gems from tartar sauce. I don't know if you guys experience this, but I experience it all the time. So many tartar sauce gems.
装備を作るんだね。
I'm so foolish, yeah.
新しいものを用意しといたよ。見てみな。
Ah, that's cool. They've got new sword effects, like changing your affinities. Interesting.
ペルソナについ
Down
ては
here,
未知なこと
salt
が
is a
多
way
い
of
からね
life.
とにかくいろいろと試してみるしかないのさ。
Yep, entirely understandable, Pip. But thank you very much for the follow. I would also need to lie down after meeting Tabby. She has that pretty. But yes, thank you for the follow. Thank you for popping in. This is truly gems in your sauce. I know, it happens so often as well.
これほらよ、待たせたね。
Just every single time, you're just sitting there going,
作りたいなら
sauce. Nope,
外に
not
持って
sauce, that's a rock.
さあ見ていきな。
Thanks, Obama. Ooh, Invigorate 2 would be handy. But I'm lazy and I'm not going to do that. I think I already have most of these anyway.
でもまあ
Also, yes, I am playing it in Japanese because for some reason it feels completely wrong to play this game not in Japanese. Like from the very beginning, even before starting to learn Japanese, playing Persona in English for some reason just
いろいろ研究してるけど、私
Light
たちは手に
insta-kill
入らないものが多くてね。
when it says light and ma'am, please, for the love of God, shut up. When it says light insta kill, it means it doesn't mean like it's a light insta killing. It means light insta kill. Japanese doll might be someone that's a bit concerning. Yeah, I'm not sure what it is, but for some reason, just the idea of playing.
I guess this is what we would call a sausage.
こまめに手入れしない
Thank you, gloves, for the
Sasha
sausage.
gifted a tier 1 sub to Toby PSG. They have given 6 gift subs in the channel.
She just keeps speaking.
気は済んだ。また
Man,
来週
please. The overwhelm is like immediately way up. Fuck's sake. Just like it's one of these streams where I'm just gonna start out with like the anxiety like way up high, you know? Yes, thank you very much for the sub. You only know 2 things about the Persona series? What are the 2 things about the Persona series that you know? I have to know. Hattie's here. Handy. Song from P5. The one singular song from P5, yes. Of course, there is only one. And what's the second? I need to actually turn it on.
腹立ってきた。あいつの顔を思い出したら腹立ってきた。
And ran back with a suspicious man from one of the Persona games. To censor him, they just gave him sunglasses?
無理ないか。うちに若手の営業マンがいたの。有名私立大卒の真面目が取り柄の子。
To censor him, they gave him
今
sunglasses?
月の販売ノルマが未達でね。ちょびっと減俸したら自信喪失しちゃって
Can't think
会社に来なくなっちゃった。
when that would have been. It sounds like something that would have... It sounds like Persona 4. I don't remember it. Very recognizable mustache. Recognizable mustache and censor him with sunglasses. Oh, it's from Persona 2. Gotcha. That's why I wouldn't know then. I mean, it sounds very much like something that would happen in Persona 4. In Persona 4, I'm pretty sure they did censor someone with a leaf. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure they censored... Was it Kenji? With a leaf? Because he cannonballed in the ocean and his fucking Speedo went missing? I think. But yeah, Persona 2, I've not actually played Persona 2 yet. They're the game giving shades of it. No, that's not him. Classic old Japanese games. I adore that. But yeah, I do actually have Persona 1 and 2 and the other Persona 2 installed. And I've even modded to... I think I've modded Persona 1. But I've not gotten around to 2 yet. It's one of those things. I was originally planning to play Persona 1 in between Tactica and this coming out. But then Baldur's Gate kinda slightly, maybe potentially became an obsession for a while. As you do. You know, as you do. Yeah, I've basically... Hyperfixations are fun. Like, I started, right? Okay, lesson. Hang on. Oh yeah, the crops. The crop's been ready for like a couple of days now. I started in... I think it was November 17th of 2022 or something. I did not see what he said. I'm gonna just buy it. But yeah, I started around there with Persona 5. It's one of those games where Persona 3, the original Persona 3, was one of the first games that I saw on YouTube. Never finished watching it. Also, I had no idea we had a hype train going. Well, that's so cute! Thank you! But, yeah. I started it with that because... It was a mixture of things, because partly Persona 3 was one of the first games I watched on YouTube, but also... I just started playing Persona 5, so it was like... good excuse to finally get into the game. That I've, you know, it's a series I've wanted to get into for over a decade. I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. Do it. I should... First game you saw on YouTube was Minecraft. I think the first game I saw on YouTube... It's a toss-up between... it would have been either Spyro Eternal Darkness or Eternal Darkness Sanity's Requiem. Because, or maybe it may have been the... Oh fuck, what was it? Basically, I remembered I had like an inkling to watch Spyro, just completely randomly wanted to see Spyro again. But obviously I didn't have any way to play it, because we didn't have a PS1 anymore.
Down here, salt is a way of life.
Thank you very much for the follow, do-it-yourself. Welcome in. But yeah, I had like a random inclination to watch Spyro and had a look on, see if it was there. I think at the time I was also playing for, I can't remember what the series is, but I was playing for like the Wii series. cannot remember what that series was called. But it's the one that has Cinder in it. But I wanted to see the very first game from that, and I also wanted to see the original Spyros. The Legend of Spyro. It might be. It may well be. Hang on. Give me a second to actually like think, because the thinking is not happening. I'm trying to remember where I can go. It's been all of like 3 days since we last did this, and I've immediately forgotten everything. You should bring a red long cloth. Japanese men's swimwear. The OG Spyros were incredible. In fact, the first Spyro game was the first game that I ever played. Well, in here, I'm gonna quickly chat to Elizabeth and see. What was I gonna do? Requests. Of course, I got the shoes. Mysterious person's autograph. Oh, I have that. I'm gonna start with what was York Survival Island, Jack Factory, and so I'm playing nunnery games. I don't know what the nunnery games are, but the other two, yeah, those are the good old days. Like, I started watching the Yogs. I think they would have been like around episode 30 of their like the Shadow of Israel series. No, not. Would it have been a Shadow of Israel by then? I think it was like. There was only like a small number of Shadow of Israel videos, but they had all of the series before Shadow of Israel was already done. But I started watching them when they were still like regularly doing Shadows of Israel. But it wasn't the first place that I saw. Christ, the brain is running like treacle today. It wasn't the first place that I saw Minecraft, because the first person I saw playing Minecraft was a guy called Over the Gun, who I used to watch quite a lot back in the day. Man? What the fuck are you saying? Okay, anyway. When does that taiyaki need to be? Taiyaki's not got pain. Okay. Christ. What was I saying? Elizabeth just completely threw me off with her tongue twister. Anyway. Genuine, brain is completely gone already. I think I need to turn down the music. I think that's my problem. There's so much noise and it's kind of like overwhelming. Right. Sorry. We are going to have an actual stream at some point. Yeah, the music in this game is fucking incredible. Like, absolutely incredible. Like, all of this music that you're hearing at the moment, it's all updated versions of the original game, you know, the original Persona 3, which already they were all bangers. These are just different versions of the bangers. Also, we are absolutely going to skip through this guy's conversation because I don't like him. Never mind, we're not going to, because I want to watch him suffer. Genuinely cannot remember. Oh yeah, I was talking about Over the Gut. I used to watch him a lot. Like early YouTube gaming. And he eventually moved off to his own website for a while. And I watched Minecraft on there. And then because he ran out of like stuff to watch, I ended up coming to YouTube, and that's how I got into the podcast. But yeah, basically the guy that we are trying to be friends with is just taking people's money. As you do. Better looking man. To be fair, he does definitely look better. Why are you asking for my opinion, sir? But of course, because this is a Persona game. Well, because it's Persona 3 specifically. We're just going to agree with him. Because it makes him like us. See, if you just agree with people that are terrible people, they will like you. My Persona will be lifeless game. Welcome in, cock. Also, I will occasionally be just sitting here eating pretzel. Because I got it for free. Which is the best price. Salty Asmers. Are you ready for the salty chewing stream? There's nom 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 nom. Also, this fucking guy is sitting there talking about getting into paradise. This shit is the reason that I don't like him. Like, his whole personality is food and stealing people's money by promising paradise. He's so unpleasant. I would love sponsored pretzel. But instead of sponsored pretzel, I just got... I spent enough money at Lidl to get a free item from the bakery pretzel. Which is still pretty good. He looks like a steak. Welcome in, Galsel. How are you doing, buddy? I really hate him. I can't wait till his social link is just sort of completed. Even his like resolution, he doesn't become that much of a better person. Like, a lot of the people that are a bit dodgy in social links, but you're still not in spoiler temperature. Hell yes. How far in are you? Like, what month are you in? If I remember rightly, I think you said you were with, you'd just gotten Shinji the last time. Yeah, tomorrow I think, if I remember rightly, tomorrow we get the exam results, and the day after, I think, is when we go to Beach Filler episode time. I think you were playing Portable, but I don't know if you were playing Reload as well. Cannot recall. I'm pretty sure in Portable you were up to Shinji. The brain is ticking so very slowly. Yeah, we can... Did I do the antiques yesterday?
そういやあ
It's the hermit boss, the one after Shinji joins the party. Gotcha. Make Shinji.
何にする
I feel like I recognize that as a reference. I just don't remember what from.
いい時に来たね
This is
今なら新しいも
for
のが作れるよ
ooh, big attack. Rate up is always good. For Santa, for Mitsuru.
私が作るものはシャドウ相手なら役立つだろうよ
I'm having a moment. Evangelion. PPR, you just went through the least favorite arc and unlocked. That's the top of the third block. Gotcha, gotcha. I'm having a moment. There's a flamberg here. But it's a rapier.
あんたの他にもペルソナを使う
I'm
子
not
たちが
sure
いるん
that's
だ
how they work. I'm gonna be
仲
honest.
良くやんなよ仲間がいりゃ
Oh, that's
大体のもんは
the
乗り
way
越えられ
down
るん
low.
だからさ
I'm not gonna get that because I just got a blade for myself. This would be pretty good though.
それでいい
Fuck it. We're doing it. We're spending all of her on it. It might just be the sail blade.
またのお越しを
I'm typically used to seeing it as a ba 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 ba. As a two-hander. Yeah, it may just be the blade effect, I cannot recall. But yeah, the crit rate up is fantastic. Like, I will go for crit rate up, but it takes the accuracy slightly lower than I'm willing to go. Tell me my fortune. Guns fired in billowing shadow, arms reach at the breast, when their muzzles pointed at different shadows or triggers pulled in different locations. Where do I point my gun? At my own forehead, thank you. How's it going, man who can't get groovy? It is going so groovy. I appreciate that this guy's name is just Man Who Can't Get Groovy. I love it so much. I'm pretty sure I was talking about something to do with YouTube earlier and it's completely gone out of my brain. Ooh, rocks! I can buy rocks. Not that I need them, but I can. Bitches love rocks. I'm bitches. Of course, we're going to spend time with the best boy. The man with the best expression. The answer to the Who's Johnny Joestar arc. God, I've not watched JoJo's in ages. I did try to get into it for a while, because I've got a couple of friends that are really, or at least were really into it. Why is he blushing? Because he's absolutely fucking shit-faced. Oh, part 70 watchable. Ah. I would not know that. He's drunk, so he's flushed. It's not blushing, it's just he's flushed. Didn't tell you not to do it. What did he say? Rude to make someone wait. Didn't tell you not to do that. You always call me an old bastard, but you're running nice when you want money. He's confusing us for someone else. We do love this man. This guy is the best boy. Like, I adore this man's faces so much. When he smiles, he looks like one of those like totem pole caricatures. He's just a miserable old man, but I love him so much. Gets so absolutely shit-faced drunk that he confuses us for his son. He's a very good boy. Only a couple more levels of him though. Tuesday. It's the families. I genuinely forgot that this guy used to be a businessman. I forgot that he wasn't just always a monk. That's a big myth though. I also appreciate that you get like social link points for not bullshitting him. Like, he's not a perfect person, but he's kind of... I don't know how to like word it, but he's not a perfect person. And he is aware of it. He's aware that he has problems, and he's aware that he's not a great, like, ever been a great dad. And he's aware of all of the things that he did wrong. Oh, we're going today. I thought we got the exam results today. Oh. But he doesn't know, like, how to deal with that, so he just drinks. I love him. He's a good man. Well, not really a good man, but he's a person. Yeah, I like that for his social link, you can just get points. Enjoy, Toby. Have fun. Thank you very much for the lurk and for popping by. But yeah, I like that you can just get points for like calling him out for his bullshit. Like right there, you can just outright call him out for running away from his problems. Right, I was just like, we're gonna tell you to pick up the lead. I think that's kind of just what old people are like, though, to be honest. Like, every single time I visit grandparents or visit any old people, they always immediately start talking about people who have died. Genuinely. It's not even... It's not even slightly an exaggeration.
いいじゃないか。トレーニングもはかどりそうだ。珍しい木とか生き物がたくさん見られそう。
Gary's so pretty. Yeah, now we get the fun lore.
リアルに世界の豪邸訪問だな。
お帰りなさいませ、お嬢様。今日から短い間だが、よろしく頼む。メイドさん？そちらは語学友の皆様ですね。ようこそいらっしゃいました。どうぞこちらへ。語学友って。
メイドって実在してんだな。
Junpei's just over here having a moment.
やっぱり先輩、すごい人なんだ。改めて
Fitting himself over real-world maids.
お久しぶりです。
話は聞いている。何もないところだが、ゆっくりしていきなさい。
あ、はいっす。
She talks so formally to him, though. Like,
お久しぶりです。
that's a very formal greeting.
言っちゃった。今の人ってもしか
And
して
even still, they barely speak.
先輩のお父さん？
すっげえ迫力。
Classic rich
て
family.
かこの暑いのにスーツ？
それは別にいいだろ。
短い休暇だが、まあ存分にくつろいでくれ。
よし、楽しませてもらうっすよ。となりゃすぐそこだし、まずは海だな。やっべ、テンション上がってきた。早速ビーチに突撃。
もう海？てか行くのはいいけど、そんなすぐ支度なんて無理だよ。
なら俺た
I mean,
ち
as far as I'm aware, it's fairly common.
無駄にできねえからな。
Whenever I like, I'm around older people, that always just becomes the topic conversation. Fucking Akihiko with his speedo.
足の指の付け根が食い込む感じ。ようやく夏実感だぜ。
The speedo, but also the t-shirt.
気に目印になるようなものはないな。泳ごうかと思ってたな。
ちょ、なんすかその水着。
何がだ？
ブーメランってえぐ。
泳ぎやすいだろ。
ああ、出ました。遊びに海来たのに黙々と泳ぐタイプ。
悪いか。お前こそ何して過ごす気だ。
そりゃ夏で海と言ったらお楽しみは決まりっしょ。
Once again, training is the only aspect of this man's personality.
ほら、来た来た。お
And now we get the slightly inappropriate shots.
おー、ゆかり選手、想像より結構強気のデザインですな。
And the very inappropriate
や
Junpei.
っぱ部活で絞れてるって自信が大胆さにつながってるんでしょうか。
パラソル空いてるとこ勝手に使っていいのかな？
おっと、続いては風花選手ですな。つが風花、お前めっちゃ気痩せするタイプ？んだよ、そんな恥ずかしがんなくてもいいじゃんよ。
Classic pervy Junpei.
そんで鳥を務めますのは。
どうした？
I mean, I understand, but classic creepy Junpei. Captain Break is such a good track. I love it. I love all of the songs from this, so.
白くて綺麗。日焼け止めもう塗りました？
いや。
ダメですよ。
Never broke your
早く
pants
ちゃん
in
と
the
塗らない
water.
と。
私が塗りましょうか？いや、それは自分で。
おい、お前ってどのタイプが一押しよ。
I mean, the honest answer is I don't really care. I appreciate that this is an option now as well. I'm pretty sure it wasn't an option before. I seem to remember, like, you had to choose. And it didn't really have an effect. I don't really care. They're all pretty.
またそういうこと言ってこのむっつりめ。ああいいなこういうの。ほんと来てよかったよな。よっしゃ、そいじゃそろそろ水に浸かるとしますか。行くぜ。
待て、1位は譲らん。
Wasn't paying attention to Power of Junpei. I was too busy busting down the afternoon break. Fucking valid. It's like someone's watching me. We're about to get best girl. Oh, one of the many best girls. Big shape. Ooh. Well, sure, from a different place. Come to think that Elizabeth asked me to get me something that feels like the ocean. Ah! Got wood. There's a lap in the shore, sparkling, shimmering. Come with me to get something from the ocean. There's a tiny crab walking beneath the water. I got a tiny crab! Just casually steals an entire tiny crab. As you do.
みんな楽しく影時間の景色は体に毒。休むならそこのパラソルの下がいいだろう。
So you wanted something that felt like the ocean, so I got you crabs. Oh yeah, Persona's whole thing is very much like on their like not so much for 5, but the 3 and 4 were definitely like they have definitely got like pervy moments, especially 4. I cannot fucking stand 4. Like I love 4. The anime is so fucking funny. The game is so funny. But every single time that fucking bear comes on the goddamn fucking screen, I want to kill myself. Stars down looking for. Yuri! This man does not know when to stop. He does not know. What? Like, ma'am, please speak to me. Fuck the bear. The cat's okay. Sometimes. Sometimes. Yeah, fuck the bear. Just absolutely fuck the bear. The bear makes Persona 4 really difficult to go through. And one of the things that I'm like really genuinely unhappy about is that one of the only achievements I didn't get for Persona 4 was for getting like over 200 unique lines from Rise. And a fair chunk of that was just I didn't want to deal with a bear. So I just never got any lines relative to them. Granted, I also didn't use... Listen, I used an all-women party. Exclusively. So it was also partly my fault. But I will have to use the bear if I want to get that achievement. I don't wanna. Bear? No, not bear pretty. Beach pretty though. Look at my nippleless body. I have no nipples. I have no nipples. I didn't get them from Rise because I didn't have the people in my party to get them. Like, a lot of the lines are lines relating to, like, people being, you know, in various states. So, if you don't have them in your party, you never have any chance of getting that. I'm just gonna get Elizabeth just like an entire like aquarium's worth of trash. Literally, I've basically just gotten her a tiny little, you know, like fish tank of nonsense. Like, I got a little bit of driftwood. I got a seashell. I got seaweed. And a little crab. She's getting just a fish tank. He had his nipples ruled by Arxis. As you do. As you do. I think that's all the things though. And we go. And hydrate, thank you very much.
お食事もびっくりするくらい豪華だったね。
For the stretch.
私、あんなにフォークとかナイフを使い分けたの初めて。
もう食えねえ。キャビア一粒すら入らねえ。
あんたはがっつきすぎ？みっともない。
今日は移動もあって疲れただろう。あとは各自部屋でくつろいでくれ。
先輩は来ないんですか？
ああ、私もすぐに行く。
ご
無沙汰していました。
What do you mean?
お元気そうで何よりです。
I never checked if Iori had nipples.
すみません。ご休暇を大人数で騒がせてしまって。
彼らに明かしたそうだな。なぜ今まで隠していた？
別に隠したわけでは。
言ってあるはずだ。もともとお前が負うべき罪ではない。
ですが。
調和する二つは。
Tomorrow I will check if Iori has nipples.
別れた折より、我ら霧状に伝わる言葉だ。
It is important.
ミツル、人を信じてみろ。どれだけ己を殺しても、所詮は個の力。この世には。
Some of me just stuffing my face with pretzel while I talk about Iori's nipples.
宗家のデータベースに入り込んだのはお前だな。それもしかりだ。旅行などにかこつけず、なぜ初めから直に私に問わない。
申し訳ありません。
彼らを全員ここに集めろ。元より隠す意図などない。すべてを伝えるため準備をしてある。
すべてを
連れてきた中に竹場という少女がいるだろう。彼女が力に目覚めると
Your pretzels are probably at Little. All you have to do is go to Little and get your pretzels.
ミツルから大体は聞いているな。
Thank you, Artemis.
はい。
さよう。
I only got one free pretzel. I also did get a cookie. I got a free cookie as well. But the cookie's also mine.
今や君らを頼るほかはない。父光悦が怪物の力を利用してまで作り出そうとしたもの。それは時を操る神器だ。
時を操る。
言葉の通りさ。時の流れを操作し、障害も例外も全て起こる前に覗ける、未来を意のままにする道具と言ってもいい。
すげえ、野望のサイズがでかい。
だが研究は
I feel like I need to turn up the volume for myself. But at the same time, I know as soon as I do, I'm gonna get overwhelmed again.
何かとても深い虚無感を胸の奥に持っていたようだ。今にして思えば、父の乱心はそれを打ち破るために始まったのかもしれん。君らが全てを知りたいと望むのは当然のことだ。
And calling it a temper tantrum's a bit
伝える義務がある。
dismissive.
これは現場にいた科学者によって残された事故の様子を伝える唯一の映像だ。
映像。
この記録が心ある人の目に触れることを願います。
この声。
後藤氏は忌まわしい思想に見られ変わってしまった。この実験は行われるべきじゃなかった。もう未曾有の被害が残るのは避けられないだろう。でもこうしなければ世界の全てが破滅したかもしれない。
世界の破滅。
この記録を見ている者よ、誰でもいい、よく聞いてほしい。集めたシャドウは大半が爆発とともに近隣へ飛び散った。悪夢を終わらせるにはそれらを全て消し去るしかない。全て僕の責任だ。全てを知っていたのに成功に目がくらみ、結局は後藤氏に従う道を選んでしまった。全て僕の責任だ。
お父さん。父さんって今の人が？
お父様、これは。
彼は竹場栄一郎、当時の主任研究員だ。実に有能な人物だった。その彼を見出して利用し、こんな事件にまで追いやってしまったのは我々グループだ。栄一郎は霧状に取り殺されたも同然だ。
まさか。
つまり私のお父さんがやったってこと。影時間もタルタロスもたくさんの人が犠牲になったのもみんなお父さんのせいってこと。
おい。
じゃあいろいろ隠してたのって本当はこれが理由。私に気を使って隠してたってこと。そういうことなの？
竹場、それは違う。私は。
かわいそうとかやめてよ。
竹場。
誰か言った方が。
彼女。
Time to go hop on the beach. Which is the best part of being at the beach.
ずっと信じてたのに。
Yeah, it's not so much a temper tantrum when it's this.
こんなのきついよ。覚えてる？前に病院で言ったこと。私のお父さん子供の頃に死んだって。
Yuki is covered in like
して分かったでしょ。
salt
あの
crystals
事故が原因なん
from
だ。
the pretzel because the pretzel was on top.
普通の人は真相なんて知らないから、当時は根も葉もない噂が立ってさ。お父さん主任だったか
And
ら
it's just kind of making it
世
better.
間から目の敵にされてね。いろんな場所を転々と引っ越したの。
Just cookie with salt. is going so fucking good right now. I know there's important things happening on the game. I am absorbed by my cookie.
まあね。でも私ずっと信じてた。お父さんは悪くないはずだって。小さい頃から大好きだったし、絶対悪いことするような人じゃないって。実は
Also, it just is a good cookie, to be
春頃
honest.
ね、手紙が届いたの。10年前のお父さんから家族へって。笑っちゃった。
Potato,
ほとんど私の
potato
ことし
crisp
か書いてないんだもん。
cookies.
だから信じようって思ってたの
That sounds incredibly weird.
に。だから
I will try
自
them.
分に力があるって分かった時は偶然じゃないって思った。怖かったけど霧状グループのそばにいればお父さんのこと何か分かるかもって。だからペルソナ使いになって戦いも続けてきた。でもさ、なんていうかそんなの無駄だったんだよね。気休めだよそれ。現実ってきついよね。怖いの我慢して戦ってるのにどうにもなんないよね、これじゃ。それに私、
God, I
も
want
しかした
another
ら
pretzel.
失踪してたのかも。あんなことがあったのになんで桐城先輩にはまだお父さんがちゃんといるのかって。みっともないね私。すごいよね君。いつもそうだよね。一人だけ冷静で余裕あって、そうやって私のこと慰めて支えてくれるってわけ。
Also, the moon reflecting off the water is just so pretty. Like the water itself, everything here is so pretty. Even if that looks like it was directly ripped from the PS2 game. All of that's so pretty.
分かったような顔しないでよ。あなた、私のこと何も。ごめん。私余裕なくてわけわかんない。なんか怖くて。もう全然わかんない。教えてよ。私、これからどうしたらいいのかな。
The obvious thing is to fight.
すごいよね、君。ごめんね、私のことばっかり。あなたも両親亡くしてるのにね。辛いのには慣れてるから。
It's fine, I don't remember my parents, probably.
あなたと
I
話
was
せてよ
like
かった。
6. I wasn't using them anyway.
連れてこいって先輩に言われたんでしょ。かっこいいじゃん。でもありがとう。
Hug on the beach! Hug on the beach! And then he already fucking ruins it. Hug on the beach!
まったく遅いよお前ら。
You already been gone for like 20
みんな心配してる
seconds.
ぜ。もうすぐ影時間だし戻ってこいってさ。
あ、そっか。
あ
Fucking Yori.
なんかお前ら
It's always
そっ
Junpei.
か、影時間って場所関係ないんだよね。
たく当たり前だろう。
Sir,
俺っち全然気づい
let
て
us have a moment of just hugging on the beach.
私さ、最近思ったんだ。ペルソナ使いは力に目覚めると
Classic
影
Ace
時間の
defective.
体験を忘れなくなる。それって力と引き換えに目を背けられなくなるってことなのかも。忘れたい現実からさ。やるしか ないんだよね。
だな。よっしゃ、じゃあ戻るか。
But we feel like we're being watched again. Spooky. Did not mean to press that button.
空気おいしい。こんな森林浴なんて岩戸台じゃ絶対できないですよね。
I do love that they just ran off by themselves to not bring Junpei with them. Like, I know it's like just like a girl's thing, but also 90% sure that the entire reason that they left by themselves was just because of Junpei.
私たちだけで来てよかったかも。
まあね。
はい、私です。待ってください。スピーカーフォンに切り替えます。どうぞ。
今島の研究所にいるんだが、廃棄されて動かないはずだった機械が勝手に出て行ってしまったんだ。
機械？
どういったものなんですか？車道以外だと勝手が違うので。
戦闘車両の一種でね、実は対シャドウ兵器。
Anti-shadow combat vehicle.
対シャドウ兵器って要するに戦車ってこと？みんなに連絡しなきゃ。携帯。
実は今、男子3名と別行動中でして。
Just the best way to have just randomly go missing.
そうか。とにかくできるだけ早く当たってくれ。私もすぐに戻るか。
もし目標が捕獲不能と判断される場合、破壊してもよろしいですか？
破壊はね、多分無理だね。
無理ってそんなの本当に止められるんですか？
とにかくやってもらうしかない。また後で連絡するよ。
He's so fucking unhelpful.
ダメです。みんな繋がりません。
It's like, hey, so we just lost a combat vehicle. It's kind of got a mind of its own. It just sort of left by itself. Good luck. You cannot destroy it. Have fun. Oh, good. Lovely.
まあいい。まずは我々の装備を取りに戻ろう。そうすれば山岸のペルソナでも探せる。もっとも島全体となると簡単じゃない
が。もう肝心な時にどこ行っちゃってんのよ。
あれ、彼女たちまだ起きてないのかな。もうお寝坊さんなんだから海は待っててくれないってのにね。
な、日が陰ると水温が下がり体力を余計に消耗するからな。
I no longer have any pretzel or cookie.
ああ、そうっすね。
It's a real sad time to be alive.
ところで順平、そういえば気がけに屋敷の使用人から何か渡されてなかったか？
いや、見られちゃってますか？
It is sad, so very, very sad.
実はメイドさんからお手紙もらっちゃったんすよ。これラブレターだったらどうしましょうね。順平困っちゃうなんて。
バカだろ。
何？3人で縄文杉を見てきます。
That's a very strange love letter, Junpei.
もう夏に南の島へ来てなんで海に来ねえんだ？いいのかそれ、人として。
お前が原因。
More things to do on an island than
昨日のは重たい空気をなんとかしようって俺なりに気使った。
harass women. Junpei.
まあでもそれはいいんす。大事なのは野郎だけでどうすんのっていう事実っす。ここはもう
But speaking of harassing women,
新しい出会いしかないっしょ。
Junpei is still here. So,
ズバリ名付けて屋久島渚のアバンチュール大作戦。
Operation Yakishima Beach Flight.
アバンチュールナンパでもするのか。
ねえねえどうすか。つか真田さんいれば絶対行けますって。
何を言い出すかと思えば、お前の意見も聞いておこうか。
Sounds like a hassle. It really just sounds like a hassle.
確かに面倒だな。
Junpei is a fucking menace of a human being.
つかありえねえ。この流れはもう必然ですよ、必然。
Like, sometimes I love him.
ならいつもの通り、こいつに現場指導。
Especially in Portable with the female main character.
作戦だと言ったろ、自分で。
But so many problems are caused by this fucking boy. It takes until like the end of summer for him to stop being a problem. Oh, there's more people on the beach now. Hello! First baby leads free and all, but I hate that it gets my feet dirty with mud. Can't relate to beach like this stuff. Muddy feet is kind of horrific, to be fair. And head back, start prepping the barbecue. Whammon. I genuinely thought all of those on the ground were poops. But yeah, they have such a fucking intense song. They're just trying to pick up girls. God, this fucking song. Have to be more subtle or put them off. I'm here to do it with the intention of getting a girlfriend too. That makes us rivals, doesn't it? Okay, buddy. Okay. God, it's so pretty out here though. But I don't like, you know, beaches and all that stuff, but this place makes me want to go to the beach. And if this was a soundtrack when I was there, yeah, I would go. This is the best pickup girls operation music period. You're so right.
まあこういうところでの声のかけ方をリーダー殿に教えてやっからさ。
Go right ahead, Iori. Show us how you don't have any nipples. Iori has no nipples. We have confirmed it.
だから最初は誰でも答えやすい無難な質問。
This is the no nipple squad.
これ鉄則。どこから来たのとか。 海楽しんでるとかな。そういうたわいない質問で始めて、あとは会話のキャッチボールが重要なわけ。まず俺が声かけて気を引くからさ、お前が質問の切り出し役な。よし、じゃあ行くぜ。ねえねえ、お姉さんたち。
Thanks, Artemis. Oh god, I've got to take part? I don't wanna. Hey, having fun? Hey.
どうだっていいじゃん。
あれ？ああ、そんなこと言わないで教えてよ。
なんで君に教えなきゃいけないの？
なんでって。あ、そんな冷たいこと言わないでよ。
俺のどこが会話のキャッチボールなんだ？
いや、これからっすよ、これから。お姉さんたち大学生ですか？それとも OL さん？
あのさ、君たちまだ若いよね。高校生とか？
I'm not gonna lie to them for the sake of Junpei.
高校生が屋久島観光か。なんかムカつくよね。
ムカつくと言われてもな。たまたま友人の別荘がここにあって招かれてるだけだからな。
へえ、屋久島に別荘。すごいじゃんその友達。うちらは稼いだ自分のお金で遊んでるんだけどね。
あ、そりゃ偉いっすね。
No lying, how do we expect? We listen. We don't lie when we're trying to pick up people of any gender, because when you get found out, you will inevitably get dumped. Important. No lying. Lying bad. Lying not good. Lying make fake. No like fake.
え
？Nasty.
正直だね。ちょっと安心してないでいい加減構うのやめよう。
People like honesty.
いやいや、構ってくださいよ。お姉さんたちが綺麗な
At least Salty likes honesty. Salty can't deal with the lying.
ああ、こいつら調子乗ってんな。じゃあもう行こっか。
Meanwhile, the music. Music just continually banging on in the background while he's playing horrifically wrong.
かなり頑張ったじゃないですか。そんなこと言うなら真田さんが手本を見せてくださいよ。
なんで俺がそんなことしなくちゃならない？
だって作戦なんでしょ。成功に向かって協力すんのが仲間ってもんじゃないんすか。
一応筋は通っているか。いいだろう。
I'm barely even paying attention, I'm just vibing to the music.
ところどころで質問を頼むぞ。試合のペースは俺が作ってやる。
Ooh, we can talk to more people. Hello. Taxi and driver so cool. Fierce guy. Ah yes, fierce guy. Look at his fucking shades. Oh yeah, that's another thing. Merry Valentine Miss. I completely forgot that was a thing. Completely forgot Valentine's Day today. Just a single light, you know? Don't need to pay attention to it. All that said, one of the girls in work gave me a it's like a sort of decorative heart thing, like it's supposed to go on like a card or something. But it's got like a little, you know, a little loop for hanging it. So I've been hanging it off of my radio whenever I've been in. So I've just got a little heart at my radio. It's adorable. I think I might have a picture of it somewhere. Oh. Hello Storm. Welcome in. I think I might have a picture of it somewhere, but I may need to check that it doesn't, like, dox me. Because obviously it's on my uniform. But yes, welcome in Storm, thank you for the follow.
うるさい。黙ってろ。
ねえねえ信子、あの子こっち見てない？
あ、本当だ。よしえ、よくそっから見えるね。
Just the eternally... Hello. My adorable face? I was going to say I don't have a face on the stream. And then I remembered the Salt Boy is existing. I completely forgot. I almost forgot to put Salt Boy up today. Yeah. chance on his double secret Valentine. For the right price, I too will be your Valentine.
何？
連れの人とかいないんですか？
連れの人？ナンパのつもり？
Salt Boy is adorable. Salty depends on the day.
話をしたいだけというか、思いがけない話題に出会ったりとか、お互いいい刺激になるかもしれない。
だからそういうのをナンパって言うんでしょ？今時海辺でナンパなんてキモいよ。
いいじゃん、いいじゃん。どうせ暇なんだしさ。
Oh, I just remembered who the next person we hit on is.
たくのぶこったら。
I did not want Akihiko to hit on me.
私たちいくつに見える？マジマジ？まだそれくらいに見える？いやー、お世辞でも嬉しいな。実際はもっと上なんだよね。
そうでしたか。それほど目上の人。
Akihiko's so like he has one personality trait and it is tweeting.
なんか若いのに口がうまいな、ほんと。君たちはいくつなの？
What did Junpei say? Oh yeah. Junpei's saying what we're all thinking though. Like, for once, I can't argue with him here. I can argue with a lot of the things that Junpei says, but we love MILFs. So far, he has ruined so many things, but I cannot argue with him on the MILF.
だいたい話題とか合わないと思うよ。私たちと話してても面白くないでしょ。
Oh yeah, he is just a horny bastard. The man has no chill. The second he sees like an inch of skin, he's just like, oh. But you know what? We love him eventually. We don't love him right now, but we love him eventually. Ankles? Whose ankles? Oh, he sees an inch of skin. I see.
上司の口ですか。場合によっては興味あります。
なんか君嘘つけないタイプだね。
Akihiko though, he does not have game. Akihiko has as much game as I do.
話の腰折らないでよ。興味あるって言うんだからそれでいいじゃんか。
信子さん、いい加減誰かで構わないそのスタンスやめなよ。
ねえ、いいじゃん。こういうの久しぶりだしさ。
つうかこんな子たちいじってないで別荘戻ろうよ。あいつら待ってるよ。
あいつらって彼氏？
おっとそっか。ごめんね。待ち合わせの時間になっちゃった。私たち別荘地で彼氏たちとバーベキューしてるから、よかったら来てね。
You can come if you want.
じゃあね。
You know, I would go just for the free food.
つか真田さん、なんか俺たちかっこ悪くないっすか？
Like, that would be so worth it. Free barbecue? I don't even really like barbecue that much.
次は本当頼んだぜ。
Here we go with the third one. Aren't shaking up my girlfriend, are you? Nah. Nah. Sweaty man. Should we go to the restaurant for them? I know, right? Good question. This one's great. The real reason that we went to that restaurant specifically is because I've only been to 2 places in city in the entire like 4.5 years I've been here. Literally been to 2 restaurants, and one of them was a nearby like what's it called? Like a buffet thing with like a million different like types of food in there. But it's like fucking loud and big and noisy and busy. And the other one was this place. That's the only reason that we went to that place. It's unusual to find someone not in a group. This one's great. Say one thing in French. What's the one thing that you can say in French? It was an utter failure.
だと思ったわ。あなたたち女心が分かってないもの。
それを言われると。
帽子くんは自分のことばっかりって感じ。相手のためにって発想が欠けてるんじゃない？
Oh, the criticisms.
はい。
Suck it, Junpei.
くんはクールだけど、女の扱いはまだまだ知らないって感じ。
The instant read on this girl.
まあ、そうかもしれない。
っていうか、なんかめんどくさそう。理屈っぽい感じで。
You seem like you're kind of a hassle.
髪のちょっと長い君はわかんないな。
Don't hold back. Give me the full deets on.
ミステリアスっていうか、アンビバレンツって感じかな。
Tell me what you think about my lack of nipples.
言ってる意味わかる？ああ、賢い。やっぱ君が一番好みかも。
え？じゃ待ってよお姉さん。
Suck it, Yuri.
なんて冗談。私、君も気に入っちゃったな。
マジっすか？
私のためになること一緒に教えてあげようか。
はい。
それじゃあこっちで日焼け止め塗ってもらおうかしら。
I believe you'd lie about nipple jail.
そんな、いいですか？
もちろんいいわよ。日焼け止め。
I would never lie about nipple jail. It just sort of appears and disappears. It's like quantum nipples. Salty has quantum nipples. You're welcome. Salt boy lore right there.
君たちも一緒にどう？
I'll give you a good deal.
今ならお安くしておくわよ。
お安く？
今の太陽が本物じゃなくて1980年代に某国が打ち上げた人工。
What just happened? Would you like to join? I'll give you a good deal. You know the sun isn't real. It just went from 0 to 100. So fast.
太陽なのは当然ご存知よね。
あり？
この人工太陽の光には邪悪な波動が含まれてて、市販の日焼け止めだけだと体内のオーラが濁るの。そこでこの特別な日焼け止めの出番ってわけ。今なら3本でお値段たったの30万円パッキリ。
おい、彼女の言ってることだいぶ変じゃないかな。
Doesn't she sound kind of strange? Get in there, Junpei. Get in there.
うわー、おバカ！この状況で俺だけ置いてくな。
This is not how the scene went in the OG game. I'll tell you for a fact, in the original game, she was not, you know, MLM nutjob. It was yeah. She's trans in the original game. I imagine they probably took that out on purpose. Because yeah, in the original she is trans. Like, it's a whole thing. Not necessarily like terribly handled, but also the idea of them all immediately running away from her probably wasn't the kind of image they wanted to be doing. Yeah, that's basically, I think that's what it used to be. Like, it's not as badly handled as I believe the Persona 4 cross-dressing scene is. From what I understand, the cross-dressing scene in 4 was pretty rough. Not that I really know, because I did edit it out. Right. I modded it so that it wasn't an issue. But yeah, it's not so much a bad one in this, it's just not great either. Yeah, that was suddenly MLM. Which that's also that's why that line's there. It's because originally it was a trans person. It's not that she's speaking weirdly, it's that she was speaking weirdly. That's what the idea was in the original.
勝負にはこだわりたい。問題点は分かってる。お前の欲望が丸出しだから。
Just the sudden transition into MLM was hilarious. Yeah, very much like good on them for changing it.
そういう真田さんこそ外ればっかじゃないですか。なんで女の子の前でもリズ
Like, it's a very minor scene, but at the same time it makes a difference that they're changing it. Even though there are specific, one of the specific things was like they were trying to, you know, be as faithful to the original as possible. But they're still happy to change things that need changed. It's both y'all fuckers' fault.
俺は勝負にはこだわるんだ。
そうだそうだ、そんなんで納得できっか。つかお前ちゃんと考えてこた。え？
どうした？何かあるのか？
Junpei is going full empty brain. The just robotic way that Makoto just turns. Look at her. Pretty dress. It looks like a hospital gown. Akihiko's outfit is just so bad.
最後の最後にすげえ涙よ。憎いぜ神様。つかマジ可愛い。
確か
に。やっべえよマジで。俺とりゃ今までの負けなんてチャラでしょ。
I'm going to be blunt, it does not help Junpei's case that he's just sort of hiding, staring at a woman from behind a rock. It's not a good look at all.
よし、採用だ。
よし、なら順番決めるっすよ。勝った人から時計回りで。最初はグー、じゃんけん。
I am scissoring so hard. Go one by one, form an orderly queue to go and harass the women. Which is the best way to do it, you know. Just continuously non-stop harassment is, you know, historically really good for you. And really successful.
一人俺順平ってんだ
Junpei, you have the charisma of a damp sponge.
一人よか楽しんじゃねえかな
人を探しています。
へえ
あなたではありません。
あ
Fucking car shut down.
予想以上に早かった
Still more charisma than me. Oi, bonk. Shush. You're at least a sexy sponge. I don't know how you get sexy sponges, but you are one.
手強いっすよ先輩
I love her so much. She's just like, I'm looking for someone. You're not him. Savage.
ああ君海が好きなのか
何でしょうか。
ああいや海はいいよなトライアスロンの選手はプールでの練習が中心の選手より海で鍛えてる人の方が強いらしいぞやはり
そういった情報は私には必要ありません。
Aggie equals training knowledge.
勝ったなお前よりも
Completely irrelevant.
長さの問題じゃねっつのあーなんか俺もう泣きそうっす
泣くな俺まで惨めになるだろうが
というわけだお前がなんとか拾わないとトラウマになっちまう
俺は負けてない負けてないからなあとは任せた
They're so dramatic about it. They're so dramatic about it. I'll avenge you. Hey, baby. I hate it. I'm not gonna say it. I know full well that it would not affect anything if I said it. The tide is high and my pants are low, baby.
あなたは
よく聞こえねえてかなんかびっくりされてんぞおい俺らも突撃するっす
ひとまず危機回避を優先します。それに確認は静かな場所でないと。
Fucking Naruto runs away.
お前何言ったわけ走って逃げるって絶対なんかやっただろうつかお前追いかけた方がいいって
Don't care. You know, when a woman runs away from you, don't chase them. You know, Junpei.
余裕かましてる場合かとにかく謝ってこいな出なきゃ共犯になっちまうだろ今行けばまだ間に合うって
I decided to follow the girl into the forest, as you do.
早く追いかけろ
Get on your knees, beg for forgiveness, and then introduce her to me. Ah, yes, of course.
ただごとじゃなかったぞ
Just it's the Naruto running that's especially funny. Look at her. Look at her, she's so funny. Area 51. It's a like slight wobble in the hands as well as she runs. Like every step they bounce a little. Hang on, I've got to stare at the environment to see how low res it is. Look at that. That is just a sheet of green. I'm having a great time. Can I just run backwards? No. Damn. How far inland did we run? I'm never going to get over the way this girl just... the way she runs. It's so unnecessary for her to Naruto run. Can you spot her? She's very well hidden. I lost sight of the girl. She must be the one who's been watching me. I don't know how I came to that conclusion, but yeah. Hello.
やっぱりあなたは見つけました。あなたをずっと探していました。私の一番の大切はあなたのそばにいることであります。
What was the operation called? Operation like Super Beach Mega Ultra Fling? Success.
なんだそりゃ、そんなありかよ。
バカな、どうなってる？声もかけてないはずだ。
It's that mystery charm, you know? Don't need to say anything. I've just got that swagger.
やっといた。どこ行ってたの？探したんだから。
Hi guys.
というか、皆さんなんで水着で森の奥に？
Never mind the swimsuits. I'm being held.
あれ？その子誰？なんで抱きついてるわけ？
聞いてくれ。実は少し面倒なことが起きてる。休暇中にすまないが、すぐに戻って戦う準備をしてくれ。
いや、準備はいいよ。探し物は見つかったからね。
理事長、どういうことですか？
やれやれ、探したよ。勝手に出たらダメだろ、アイギス。
はい。
Combat vehicle.
いやはや、心配かけてすまなかったね。もう大丈夫だ。
Personally, I've never been hugged by a vehicle before, but I would quite like to.
どうなったんですか？
あ、それもう完了だから。アイギス、こっちへ来なさい。
はい。
彼女の名はアイギス。見ての通り、機械の乙女だ。
はじめまして、アイギスです。
It's Aigis!
シャドウ相当を目的に活動中です。今日付けで皆さんと共に行動するであります。
So when you said to Area 51, you weren't fucking far off.
信じられん。こんな可愛いのにロボって何このトホホ。10年前、シャドウが暴走した時の保険として対シャドウ兵器というのが計画されてね。アイギスはその中でも最後に作られた一体。そして唯一の生き残りなんだ。
Fucking Penny. It kind of is fucking Penny.
ということは、まさか
OG Penny.
はい。ペルソナ故障パラディオンを扱える仕様であります。
彼女は10年前の実戦で大怪我を負ってここの研究所で管理されていたんだ。なぜ今朝になって急に再起動したのかいまいちはっき
I
りしない。
guess Naruto ran so that Penny could fly.
ま、これから仲良くしてやってくれ。
精神が備わった対シャドウ兵器、すごいです。
ところでさ、ちょっと確認したいんだけど、あなたさっき抱きついてたよね。その彼を知ってるの？はい、私にとって彼のそばにいることはとても大切であります。
人物認識が完全じゃないのかもね。あ、それとも寝ぼけてるってことかな。
I hugged.
興味深いぞ。
Thanks, Artem. I hugged Yukari last night, and now she's jealous that another robot girl is hugging me.
まあ、それは後で考えるとしてた。なあ、みんな知ってたかい？実はここ、いろんなレジャー設備がずらり揃ってるんだよ。テニスコートにプールバーに、あとカラオケなんかも完備らしい。聞かせちゃおうかな、僕のメドレー。え？
I think the last thing I want is to hear Ikitsuki singing. That's not the kind of karaoke I would like to be at. I don't think I would like any karaoke in the first place.
花の屋久島旅行も早3日目か。明日はもう帰るだけだし、正直3日じゃ短いよな。まあでもそれっぽっちの割にはいろいろあったか。理事長の歌とかお前の歌とかな。おかげで昨日の晩はほとんど寝られなかった。
海岸で何かの任務でしょうか？
そんなんじゃねって、ただ遊びに来ただけだ。
そういえばアイニスは遊ぶってわかる？
もちろんわかるであります。
She's fully exposed in all of her like robot glory.
おお、そうそう。
Not even hiding that she's a robot anymore.
まあ、とりあえず帰る前に一遍くらいちゃんと泳ごうぜ。
あ、ちょっと純平くん、アイニス塩水につけて平気なのかな？
そんなやわじゃないでしょう。
あれ、海に入るんじゃないの？
皆さんもご一緒されるのがいいであります。一人だけが楽しい行動は本当の遊ぶではないであります。変なとこ律儀なんだね。でもまあせっかくだし。
He's so cute.
私たちも行きましょうか。
そうだな。
どうだい？楽しんでる？いやー、いろいろあったけど、なんとか今日は終日羽を伸ばせそうだね。そうですね。真田さん、何してんすか？真田さんの番っすよ。俺の番って何をやってんだ？楽しそうでよかったよ。明日のことだけど、
Glad we skipped over the scene where he's singing. It's not in the original either, but I'm very happy that it's not here.
朝早いから遅れないようにね。
It's the kind of thing I can imagine they would do.
伝えておきます。じゃあ、寮に帰ったらまたよろしく頼むよ。はい。
Also, Nimin.
おーい、真田さん。やれやれ。俺たちも行くか。待ってってアイギス、水鉄砲ってそういう意味じゃないから。あぎゃー。
純平くん、ダウンです。おし、総攻撃チャンス。
Pokemon.
タイム、マジ無理だっつ。
I appreciate that we could just beat him up. Water gun. I adore Aegis so much. She's so fun. Completely fucking clueless, but she's so fun.
随分と苦しそうですね。
お前らがやっべ、あいつらだ。
ああ、あの3人が例の？ほんとだ、来てんね。
バカ、行くぞ。
なぜ他の者は私を見るたび姿を隠そうとするのでしょう。
It's probably to do with the gun that's in your, like, belt loop. I'm not entirely sure, but it might be something to do with it.
悪い。礼はいつもの方法で。
町屋。今回は代価をいただく代わりに話を聞かせてほしいのです。あのペルソナ使いたちが何やら騒がしいのですよ。彼らはこのところ月が深淵になるたび宴に繰り出すあの塔にも頻繁に立ち入っている。なぜあんな戦いを始めたのです。知っているのでしょう。言えませんか。仲間だから。違う。
俺はもう連中の仲間なんかじゃね
え。なら教えてください。赤の他人より今はカプセルの方が大事なのでは。
離れてた身だ。詳しいことは知らねえ。ただあの敵を全部やれば影時間やあの気味の悪い塔が消える。そう聞いてる。
I'll go get it. I will refill my drink. Will you enjoy this guy being edgy?
なぜペルソナ使いが影時間を消すなどと。しかもあの滅びの塔までも。
滅びの塔だ。あんな不気味なもん消せるってんなら試すだろう。
高谷。
ええ、分かっています。
今さら戻れっかよ。俺の力はもう昔みてえな純粋なもんじゃねえ。
I return bearing iced tea, as is the standard now. The iced tea from Lidl costs like 3 times as much as the knockoff shitty Beppis, but it doesn't fucking stop me. So good. What did I buy again? Tetracon. I don't even know what these do. What the fuck is that? What even is that cock? Can take forever to get back, tiring trip, rest up the operation, 6 more to fight. See, I adore it, but it's horrifying. It looks like Mr. Blobby, but like, come. No, not going for Pilk. Unsurprisingly enough, no Pilk here. I've never been paid enough to try Pilk. So if you want to give the 50 quid payment for Pilk, okay, how many things I'll do? Oh no, hang on. It's not 50. Listen, I almost forgot. But unfortunately, a certain someone reminded me that inflation exists. The economics thing, not the kink. And unfortunately now, 50 quid doesn't get you as much with me. You do have to do 50 quid and 50 halloumi-doobies. So, you know, just thought I'd update you on inflation. You can thank Mustachio for this. It is entirely his fault. We do love some good inflation, but this is not the good inflation, this is the nasty inflation. Who am I? Says no tartar sauce. For your lodging quarters, I shall remain by your side at all times. Something you'd like to know about Aegis? Where are the others? They're quite few created. You could say they were Aegis' civilians. All destroyed 10 years ago in the incident. Aegis has been quite... In fact, not all of them have been destroyed. This isn't a spoiler for this game, because this doesn't include the DLCs. But one of the siblings does still exist. Most souvenirs are useless. Snow globes, keychains, postcard. We got a gun. we got a vehicle. Looks like a normal girl as long as she doesn't do anything too weird, but if she does, do you think anyone will figure out that she's actually a robot? Well, maybe not. Most people aren't on the lookout for undercover robots. Got a point. She's super cute, but made out of steel. Yuri, that has never stopped me. It's new territory for me, honestly. I don't know how to approach this. This is the point where Junpei starts becoming, like, entirely just good boy. Right now is about it. Him simping for a robot is when he starts becoming, like, not an ass. Not as much of an ass. There's still at least one horrifically assy scene. Well, it's not really horrifically assy. It's just slightly assy. Assy in the way that could easily have been dealt with if they weren't just incredibly stupid. You know? Let's go give the entire beach to Elizabeth. Here's a beach. Would you like a crab? Is this tiny creature a crab? How adorable. Snip, click, snip, click. Their movements are so unique. I must give it a truly magnificent name. Ah! Because of your stories and your lovely souvenirs, I was able to experience the ocean myself. Here is crab. Give her crabs! I was really hoping I would just be able to give her the entire beach. But this will do. I just checked that. Actually, I should do talk as well. Or it seems very different from usual. Did something happen? I went to the beach. Oh. She's so cute. I love Elizabeth so much. Do you have my sword? Why are you so red? Do I just immediately get the sword? Is that what's happening? I feel like that's maybe what's happening. I might as well just get one. Hang on, I think I picked the wrong fucking thing. It might be fucking stupid, my dude. And by might be, I mean I fucking am.
うちにはないけど、骨董さあ見ていきな。
Oh, anal beads.
それがお好み、それがじゃあこれといくつだい？はいよ。
We've gone to the whistling part of the stream.
いくつそれが気に入ったかい？それが交換成立いくつだ？おややめるのかい？それがじゃあこれと交換だ。要はそれだけかい
？Genuinely, this is how I would be. Like, if I was not streaming, I would just be whistling the entire time that I have this game open. I've been doing it with Fire Emblem lately. Like, recently, I started playing Fire Emblem again. And I'm going through 3 houses again, just doing my church route. Every single second that I have that game open is I'm whistling. I cannot stop myself. I don't even realize I'm doing it. It's just, song. I know this song. Whistle. Perfect. Ash started first. It's like I've basically since Salty Scat Karaoke. You know what? Welcome to the Salty Scat Fest. But yeah, it's basically since going to Ash's place last year, because last year I went to Ash's place and I finished 3 houses, like literally next to her. And since then I've been like sitting there planning to play it again, thinking about it constantly looking at the fucking Switch and everything going, it's right there, I could play it. Never played it. As soon as Ash starts playing it again and it starts talking about it again, I'm like, it might be happening soon. It's happening. Oh, here we are. I'm playing it again. So yeah. Who's fucking surprised? And that basically anytime that I'm not playing this on stream, I am playing Fire Emblem. It's a thing. I can't believe the Salty Scat Fest did not get coded, to be honest. Genuinely surprised. Anyway, we love this old man. Mitatsu's such a good boy. Look at the face!
神妙な顔してお経を読んでりゃいいってよ。檀家からお布施もらって楽に稼げるってよ。そう思ったからさ。下げたくもない頭下げて実家の寺継がしてもらったってのによ。世の中は毎日誰かしらの命日なのな。ビビるぜ。正直人類の歴史ってやつにな。放り続けてよ。うちみてえな小せえ寺は住職フル稼働だ。コンビニじゃねえっての。
I don't even know what temple this guy like runs. It's never like specified. Because he doesn't run the one that's by the door. I cannot remember what it's called now. Yeah, he doesn't run that one because the person that ran that one was the person that took care of Koro.
半分正解だがな。半分は不正解だ。 うちは暇なしだが
He's fucking dead.
ピンキリだがよ、お布施一回の額はな、そこらの会社員の下手すりゃ商用並みよ。だがな、忙しすぎるんだよな。老体に鞭打たにゃさばけねえ。わしの大嫌いな一生懸命ってやつだ。
That mentality is like the one major thing that it's like the one major reason I don't think I could ever live in Japan. It's just like the work ethic. I have no work ethic in the first place.
ここの身の振り方を考える。気張っても限界あるし、酒も弱くなったしよ。この間おめえに醜態さらしまったしさ。もう末期だわな。
Because I would consider it. Like, definitely, at some point I'm definitely going to move country, unless I don't have the money to ever do that, which is very likely. I don't have my lights on. But yeah, that's very likely. I will never have the money to do it, but there's no chance in hell I want to stay my entire fucking life in this shithole. Time to retire, baby! But at the same time, it's fucking expensive. And I have no idea where I'd go.
こういう言い訳ってどう？離婚届は受理されてねえし、うちの寺も自営だから不動産だわな。悪い話じゃねえと思うのよ。頭それの我慢すりゃ、わしも隠居で遊んで暮らせるしよ。おめえどう思う？
What's this about?
あいや、その、なんだ。
We probably only have one, maybe two more
戻ってきてもらおうと思うんだわ。
like nights with this guy, and then it's done.
せがれによ。
Possibly by the end of this week, he's going to be done.
居場所を突き止めねえとな。探偵を雇ってよ。費用に糸目はつけねえ。直に会って詫び入れようと思うんだ。ほったらかしにして悪かったってな。そっちの方に専念してし、そのおめえと会うこともねえんだろうな。不良少年の相手なんててめえのせがれでたくさんだ。せいせいするぜ。
Despite his harsh words, Mutatsu sounds like he's going to miss me. Oh, he's such a good man. I love him.
こんなことになるならよ、出家なんてよ、格好つけんじゃなかったよ。明日あたり更新所に行くとするかな。さて、ぼちぼち出ようや。
I love his socialing so much. Shitty person, kinda. Shitty father. But not one that doesn't give a fuck. Ah, good, lovely. That's the kind of thing that we love to see. Perfect. We love it. How's the stream doing? Is the stream still alive? I don't know. It looks like it's fine.
起きていただきたいであります。
Hello.
無事に起床しましたね。任務完了であります。
Oh. Why are you here?
私の一番の大切はあなたのそばにいることであります。ごめん。ねえ、起きてる？
I wish a woman would say the same thing to me.
実はあの子がどこ探してもいなくて、ちょっと手伝ってほしいんだけど。
Get salty a wife 2024.
勝手に出てったかもしれなくて。私の名前はあの子ではありません。アイギスならここにおります。 アイギス、あなたいつの間に。この方は就寝中でした。ドアの開錠には2分かかりました。もろ不法侵入じゃん。夜は作戦室にいてって言ったでしょ。今後私の待機場所はここが良いかと思いますが、何か。唐突に何言ってんの。問題点があれば速やかに対処します。問題点は多分両則に違反してるはず。てかあなたも何か言ってよ。
I love this game. This game eternally has free options. It's just like, it's a consistent thing. This game eternally has free options. Option 1 is no. Option 2 is yes. Option 3 is don't care. Every single time. I would love her choker arms. I talked about this in, I think, the first Persona 3 stream. Her choker is so cute. I love Yukari. I sim. But yeah, every single time. No, yes, don't give a shit. Every single time. I don't think I've ever told her that she can't stay here, so we're going to say it.
ほらね、ダメだから。仕方ないであります。しょうがないな。じゃあ3階に部屋を用意してもらうからそっち行ってよね。あと勝手に寮の外へ出たりしないでよ。命令であれば従うであります。はあ、なんか疲れた。
Is today a school day?
じゃあ私
I feel like
朝練ある
today
から行くね。
might be a school day? Oh, that's why she's going to. Never mind. I was trying to figure out why she had,
皆さん本来は
why she had her uniform on.
学校へ行くわけですね。なるほどな。
We did have school. Been thinking after we defeat all the shadows and dark, I would disappear. What's going to happen then? Wow. Regular people don't even know about the doctor to begin with. No one will know about anything we've done. It is what it is. Time to get a present from Mitsuru. Oh. Yeah, time to get a present. Everyone's looking at me with respect. I'm so hot and sexy. I'm gonna need to get another level of academic soon. I'm so full of shit is what I am. Seems like the average score went down the same. I guess that's good for me though. Honestly, I'm a bit disappointed. I think I could have scored about 20 points higher. Good job for you. But so much my shirt gets drenched. I hate summer. Summer is nasty. It's already getting too warm. Like, what's the fucking tip? It's dark out. Currently, the temperature's 13 degrees. Why? Why are you like this? There's no need. It's fucking February. And the thing is, it's barely gone below 5 degrees. That's winter. Barely. Like, it got cold for a bit in January. For like 1 week. Like, what's the point in winter if it's not gonna get cold? Bring back cold winters. We still need to get our courage up to level 6.
そうそう。
White taiyaki? It's getting rave reviews. Just even if you chill it in the fridge at home. Lukewarm taiyaki? Fuck's sake. Hang on, let me buy you lukewarm taiyaki. Such a specific thing. Lukewarm taiyaki. I think we should probably go around and do the just the explore around and talk to everyone who we haven't talked to in a while routine. I'm waiting for my boyfriend. We're going to the flower shop. Cute. That girl is eternally waiting for her boyfriend. From what I can tell, he has no personality. I'm so used to her stalking me by now. I know she's always there, but I don't even notice her anymore. That's the same pair that have been, you know, she's been stalking him since the start of the year. It almost sounds like she's getting bored of. Hello. Apathy Syndrome Man. The fucking world's worst superhero. How long has Be Blue been open for? Has this always been open? I don't think this has always been open. I'm so sure this has been closed for a while. Hang on, let me check that I actually got that. I did get the sword. It's just a straight upgrade as well. Okay, let me double check that I'm not missing something. It sounds hilarious. I want them. I'm gonna have him in the next fight just so I can see his gloves. That's it. I cannot wait to get Vegas in Poland. We're gonna have just... No, I'm gonna be honest. Aegis, as much as I love her, because she's primarily a physical attacker, I actually don't use her that often, even though I'm normally eternally going with the all-women party. Like that genuinely might be the stupidest quote that's in my entire quote list. I don't even remember when the last time I was scatting along to the fucking song was. Genuinely don't remember. Apparently it was recently. Thank you for the quote. Just a moment. I genuinely had no idea that I did it. No idea whatsoever. I fucking hate it here. Oh, fuck me. Okay, you can at least get safety boots on. Mika doesn't need anything. I genuinely cannot remember doing it at all. I cannot remember doing it. I think I hate that. Oh, it would have been this song. Fuck me. I did it and then looked over and I realized that's what it was. I had no idea what it was, like what part of what song that was quoting. For fuck's sake. I think I don't have any words anymore. I think I've ran out of words. I hate it here. Oh, for fuck's sake. I'm never gonna get over this. Thank you for the hat trick. Slurping up my iced tea while I blah blah. You know? You ever just blah blah? Musketeer soup. Does I just get lie down that went for... Listen, the best kind of lie downs are the ones that end up being full naps. And the best kind of naps are the ones that end up being full sleeps. That's true. Welcome back, Endoms. I don't want to put Fuka in cyber gear. I'm so full of shit. This entire game is just me scatting along, and now it's permanent. I don't need another Jack Frost doll. What am I doing? I'm genuinely, I'm so like, brain not working. I'm so brain not work. Mysterious boy. Mysterious boy. The girl. No, we're not doing the gourmet king. I think we have to do class mat. Do I? Hang on. Do I have a magician? He was magician, right? Do I have a magician? I do. I completely forgot I was going around talking to people. Hang on. Oh, I forgot to come here on Sunday. It doesn't really matter. I can't come to the... I can't do that guy's social link until Poro starts coming by. Stray cat! What time the cat usually comes, they told me I'm gonna see that cat no matter what. You know what? I love this kid. This kid adores cats. Best kid in the entire game. Bop, bop, bop. Oh? Oh. That's fair. In that case, fuck you, Tomashika. We're gonna have like an entire month not talking to you, so I'm sure you'll come up during... No, wait, actually no, hang on. I can't use Sundays for you anymore. Yes, I can. Yeah, fuck you, Tomoshika. Hang on, we're having an emotional whiplash. We still have a few Sundays before they start getting taken up. And to be quite frank, I don't really give a fuck about this kid. At least I know that he is low. So I can put him on the list. Why am I doing it like that? Why am I writing his name like that? Fair enough, at me. Fucking hell. I just gave myself a fright. I saw my jacket out of the corner of my eye and went, what the fuck is that? Like it's hanging up. I was like, why is that moving? That's a person.
I guess this is what we would call a salt signal.
Oh, thank you, Car.
Officer_Code gifted a tier 1 sub to Darius has dogs. They have given 2 gift subs in the channel.
Thank you for gifty subby. Appreciate it. I'm having just the entire like brain empty. Might go closer to Miyamoto. What about Bebe? Might go closer to Bebe too. We'll do. Suppose we'll do Kaz. I want to help this guy's damn knee already. Otsukare. Spend time with the track club, and everyone's about to find out about his knee. Pretty sure that's today at least.
Miyamotoのやつ、動き悪くないっすか？いつもの勢いがないよな。あんなんで選考会に出ようなんて。
相手なら選択手伝ってほしいんですけど。もうあの人ら逃げ足だけは早いんだから。
Now she asks.
ねえミヤ、先生が職員室に来いだって。
ああ、すぐ行くよ。
あのさ。いや、なんでもない。もういい時間だし、上がりだよ。
Don't never mind me. We're basically kissed. No wait, no we're not. Hang on, I forgot. We're not kissing yet. I forgot the only romance I've done is Chihiro. But we're about to be basically kissing. Don't never mind me. I thought it was going to be today. I was sure it was going to be today that they found out. Once again, the logical response here, how's your knee doing? Not the correct option. Can you hate it? No? I thought I was going to get points for that. I swear I remember getting points for that in the previous one. But regardless, you have to get to. There we go. The stupid response is always the correct one with Miyamoto.
俺腹くくったんだ。一生そん時はお前次の首相頼むぜ。
Such an idiot. He's like, my nephew can't walk, so I'm going to make myself unable to walk as well. And then we can both suffer. Okay. Good idea. Perfect. Well done. Oh, was that level? Oh, that was level 7, not level 8. No, it's literally the worst decision he could have made. And the way to get closer to this guy is to agree with him. Tell him to just get tougher. Apparently Doki Doki Literature Club Plus is free on Epic. So there you go. Give me a second.
選考会で勝って全国大会で勝って約束を守って膝も直す全部に勝つんだからよ。
Yeah, everything about this guy's decisions are fucking terrible. All he had to do was rest for like a month. That's all he had to do.
否定であります。
I think it's more... He's just looking for an excuse to not study. SME. I guess his name is added in perfectly printed writing.
リーダー。
When you attend your institution of schooling, what kind of emotions do you feel? I feel nothing.
推測ですが。
It's inaccurate to categorize school as nothing. Why don't we do some counseling? Open your mouth. Tighten your buttocks.
あのな。
It's the toe. Kirito Senpai's incredible. Let's receive this bulletin. More Apathy Syndrome patients have been cited. Symptom relapses of the same patients from previous months. Cool. Not that cancelled. Not that kind of cancelling, Robo-san.
さすがだな。
Look at all the presents! This is a place in the top of the exams they got Mega Master Pack. Mega Masturbate!
あ、そうだ。
Anyway.
あ。
Wait, what did Nature say?
そうだ。
Summer school would be beneficial. We just established that I did incredibly and I don't need summer school. Gloves. Perfect. Love it. What was I gonna do? Oh yeah, I was gonna make a masturbate. All stats plus free. That's a pretty good. Pretty good. That's actually a pretty good master band. I didn't see it that time. I'm so clever. God, I hate myself. Fuck me. Oh, I've not gone to the station side of this. Unsociable and moody. God, me. Interesting. I did not know that was there. I guess we won't be finishing with Mitatsu this week. Although, let me just check. I'm gonna do Akihiko's thing regardless. But first... No new requests? No new requests. Oh, the fridge! I need to fridge. When is fridge? Not gonna get any strong. Okay, so we're not gonna get level 10 Mitatsu this week. We're also not in a rush to get it. What was I gonna do? Fridge. No, one of these days I'm actually gonna remember to use the fridge when I'm able to use it. Chill that fucking... Chill that Taiyaki. Chill that fucking Taiyaki. Yeah, bitch. I'm gonna get so fucking chilled. It's okay, I hate me too. Love a good wild fuck burger. I guess we're hanging out with Santa.
さて、ゆっくり食事しながらこれからの戦いの話でも。
それとも先輩。
これからの戦いか。いや、気にするな。とにかくまずは店だ。
ちょっと何あれ、やばくない？
見つけたぜ、真田明彦。
Oh, what is it this time?
お前らいつから？
Come on.
お前有名人だったんだな。ボクシング界のホープっての？
この前の続きだ。俺と勝負してくれ。潰せば箔がつきそうなんだな。こんな美味しい話ねえだろ。
チャンプだかなんだか知らねえけど、この数見て同じこと言えるか
？Somehow this complete social recluse of a man whose only interest is training manages to get into fights all the time.
一瞬で袋にしてやる。警察じゃなくて救急車呼んどけば。
俺に勝てば箔がつくと言ったな。強さを試したいんじゃないのか。
バーカ。てめえみてえな調子乗ってるガキ潰すのが楽しいんだろう。つうか勝てりゃどうだっていいんだよ。お前だってそうだろ。まずはてめえからか。
下がれ。
そっけんな。待て。逃げんな。
Ooh, package.
逃げるのは簡単だが、マクとなると苦労するな。
What's in the box? Hang on, shut up, Akihiko. There's something in a box, and I want to know what it is.
いいロードワークになった。な。だがさっきは助かった。 さすがリーダー、起点が効くな。
We didn't get the food
敵
though.
に背を向けるのは不本意だが、そばにいるものを守れなくては意味がない。
Never got the food. All I wanted was food.
相手が多ければ怪我をさせたり、周りに迷惑をかけるリスクも高まる。とにかくいい判断だった。また借りができたな。
Doesn't this mean you owe me two because I never got the food, so you still haven't paid me back for the first one? Bitch. You stole the package too.
俺宛ての荷物。中身は果物、菓子、飲料。両親からの差し入れらしい。後で部屋に運んでおくか。
What about... Can I have the beverages? Can I have drinks? Drinks for salty?
なあ。
Free stuff?
食べ盛りだろうと、こうして送
Free
ってく
stuff
れ
for
たんだ。
salty?
忙しくて連絡もそこそこだが、例の手紙でも書かないとな。ありがたいことだが、俺一人では持て
Free
余
stuff for
す。
salty.
少し持って行ってくれ。とはいえ、お前だけでは焼け石に水か。せっかくの品が傷んでしまうのはな。そうしよう。
Free stuff for
誰に呼ん
salty.
できてくれるか。
Free stuff for everyone, but mostly free stuff for salty.
一目見てわかるくらいいいものばかりですね。ご両親に大切にされてるのがすごく伝わってき
Look at all those drinks. Those are for salty.
ご両親の前では行儀がいいようだな、秋彦。
I don't know why I'm getting free stuff, but
一言余計だ。
I want it.
両親にはよくしてもらっていた。活動のことは当然言ってないかな。
I still don't understand why he always has like a plaster on his head. Like it's always there.
でも美味しそう。ありがとうございます、真田先輩。
Genuinely thought she said grandpa.
どれでも好きなだけ取れ。
ねえ、これ美味しそうだよ。それなんですか？
おお、ゆかりっち。
これはとあるお店でのご用達の。
であります。
あらかた片付いたか。こんなに喜んでもらえるとは。礼を言わないとな。両親にもお前たちにも。いや、親の話が出て少し昔を思い出した。俺が今ここにいる理由、俺が戦う理由をもう
I think we're probably gonna go another like 15 minutes and then finish up. And then maybe do another smaller stream tomorrow, which will be mostly going through tartar sauce. Partly just so that I can get to a stage where I can just fireball stream again.
ま、忘れて
Like
くれ。
I could go all the way to there
俺はまだ
that
まだ
stream,
甘いと
but
いう
we saw what happened the last time I tried to do that. It went for like 6 hours.
施設にいた頃も一つ屋根の下に暮らし、何気ない会話を交わす。つい忘れていたが悪くない。これもお前が差し入れを配れと言ってくれたおかげだ。それは親に言ってくれ。だがお前には特に礼をしないと借りが増えるばかりだな。さて、もう遅い。
Something mixed in here is a letter letter and some sort of handcrafted object. Metal made of cardboard.
どうした？何かあったか？これを。このメダルは誰のものでもない。ちょっとしたお前に聞いておきたいんだが、お前はリーダーもこなし、個人としても誰より力をつけていく。素質があるというだけでは説明がつかない。その力の源は
I
何だ？
get that strength from my friends. From my friend.
なるほど。励まされたり待っている誰かがいるということか。他人との関係か。俺に足りないものかもしれん。
My friends are my power.
俺にないものを持っているらしい。だが羨んだり真似てみても仕方ない。お前はお前だ。
the Kingdom Hearts references that I totally understand. Totally understand. I've definitely seen the entire game so many times. It's been fun watching Shafa go through them. Partly just so that I can actually see what it's like. That's not charm! So charming. Maybe I should start moving Mutetsu's social link stuff to the nights where I can't, where it's charming. And then I can start actually getting like leveled up again. You gotta be as still and as she is to be a good match. My charm level up is what you mean. I appreciate that it's giving hints to the social links, I suppose. Oh no, I've got to take notes again. Oh no, hang on. I've got to find my stuff. I forgot about this. No. I've got to pretend to be useful. My friends are my power. Why is that part of the page see-through? Stop this. Okay. We're so ready. Second to last day before summer vacation, that just shows you why you have to take a good care of yourself. We're so ready. Crash course on alchemy, baby. I might have slightly just penned all over my hand. Come on. Give us the questions. Give us the questions. Oh, the question's going to be about the Philosopher's Stone, isn't it? I feel like I remember that. It keeps... You know what? Okay. Never mind. Anything? I feel like I specifically remember a question on the Philosopher's Stone. But I may have completely passed over it in exchange for, you know, horribly failing the exam, and you know what? Valid. You know what? We're gonna have a quick nap. Just have a quick nap. It doesn't matter that we're probably gonna suffer with the academics. Who cares? Quick nap sounds fucking fantastic. Wait, what just happened? Hang on.
部活のことだ。お前は転入生だからおそらく明王杯のことを知らないだろう。
Hang on a moment.
あのな、8月2日に明王杯っていう陸上の大会があるんだ。
It's gonna unlock another social link. Why did I just have money taken in my account?
早瀬という強豪がいるが。
First, fuck it up. Fuck it up. Sorry, I cleared my phone's notifications because they were annoying me. And only after I cleared them, I realized one of them was getting money taken out, and I was like, wait a minute. I don't know what's that for? Turns out it's Bobby Doll. So it's fine.
お前にもそういうわけだから7月27日から8月1日は学校に来るよ。大会に向けた特別メニューを用意してるからな。目指すは打倒早瀬だ。本番は8月2日。それじゃ。
So we lose the first week of the summer break, basically. Yukari. I need unlimited charm for her to be in the mood. Understandable. God, his hair is so flippy. Didn't I max you out? Yeah, I did. I appreciate that I can just hang out with you anyway. But, as lovely as you are, no. I don't wanna. Right, who is around? We've got Yuko, Michael, Kitamura. Fuck it. We're gonna meet up with Yuko. Hello! Yahoo! I think we'll do this one and then this'll be us. I should actually let them speak.
忘れちゃダメだからね。走り込みは現金で、家では柔軟すること。そうだ。あなたも何か言ってあげてよ。
Ian's got this. Yeah.
けど最後まで気抜かないこと。いい？
I'm helping.
気持ちで負けんじゃないよ。あの子たちさ、今度6年生に試合を申し込むって。勝った方が校庭を使うんだって。さっき挑戦状の代筆やらされてすごく心配。試合のこともなんだけど。
Not just about the race, but whether I spelled something wrong.
ぶっちゃけさ、どう思う？小学生の時の年の差って大きいでしょ？あの子たち6年生に勝てるかな？
As long as we believe in them, friends are their power.
そうだね。そうだよ。コーチが信じてあげなきゃ。あの子たちも本気で頑張ってたし。大丈夫よね。私とあなたの教え子だし。もうなんで私がこんな緊張してんだろう。絶対大丈夫。あの子たちなら勝てる。
Okay, what, level 6? 6.
つうか、挑戦状の代筆さ、あなたにやってもらえばよかった。もっと漢字を使っておけば。
Probably should use bigger words.
私マジへこむよ。
They're 6th graders. Why are we so terrified of whether the 6th graders will think that our writing is dumb? She's so funny. Uh-oh, Stinky.
こんばんは。お元気そうで何よりです。
ほら、薬や。
They only gave him pills like a
そう
week
いえば
ago.
彼ら、
Sir.
また一人面白い仲間を加えたようですね。もとい。
What are they,
あれは
my
一人では
GP?
なく一つでしょうか。
Giving less and less medication every time.
あなたから聞いたこと、本当のようですね。彼らは本当にやる気のようだ。まったく嘆かわしい。これでは私たちも立たないわけにはいきません。彼らが何をしようと構わない。力の使い道は持ち主が決めることです。しかし彼らは影時間を消すと言っている。それは力そのものを否定することです。
This man also has no nipples.
何があっても
Although I think we did already establish that he has no nipples.
好きにすりゃいい。
町屋、お前どないする気や。知っとるで。戻ってこいって誘いが来とるやろ。
ムカつくぜ、このストーカー野郎が。
わしらはあいつらを止める。あいつらに味方する言うんやったら真っ向敵同士や。ええんか。
前にも言ったろ。俺にはもう関係ねえ。
How about just the aggressive tonal switch? A child. An entire child. Ken Amada is written in full kanji. Cute. Kindergarten nurse Renston has been able to communicate. I am able to communicate with him at any time. Please leave it to me. No. Listen, Fuka is not you. I just don't like him. I don't like the child. It's not a surprise. I just don't like him. Those attending watch supermodels wear spacesuits down the runway and ate delicious space food. That sounds like my kind of runway. Ba, 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 ba. I will be nice, but I don't expect it. Don't listen. We're not friends. Get written with the character for dry. Oh. Pickled onion space invaders? My dude. My dude. Yes. I'm so pissed that they've gotten so fucking stingy with Space Invaders. And same with Brazzles. Like, continuously just smaller packets and less packets, and then costing you more money anyways. Fuck off. Let me be a bacon slut. My Junpei senses are going crazy around him. Chances are he is more mature than you, Junpei. Thanks, Artemis. The lukewarm taiyaki I put inside here earlier is sufficiently chilled. There's no chilled taiyaki. Oh! I should bring this chilled taiyaki. I should take this chilled taiyaki to Elizabeth. In fact, I should take the chilled taiyaki to Elizabeth before I finish the stream. Because I am a fucking dumbass and I will forget. Love you, thanks for your cute round eyes. Right, gotcha. Sorry, I had to double check what taiyaki actually was. Why does it have eyes? I see. I understand now. all we have to do are mostly tartar sauce. Why do you have key blue? Nothing new. Cool. Okay, it is time. I have not saved for this entire stream. Because I'm a fucking dumbass. I haven't saved one fucking time. We managed 7 days in 3 hours. Nice. Get me. Let me just there we go. That's what we'll be doing next time. Next time we're going to talk to this asshole, but for now we're not. For now, I'm pulling back up Spoppy Dub so that I can listen to music while I find someone to raid. Next song. Yeah. Wop, 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 wop. Anyway, thanks for joining. Thanks for the really fucking weird quotes of the day. It is going to be a Nico Hart kind of a night. He's doing a music stream, so it is going to be very lurky. Well, I haven't been in a Nico stream for a while. I have missed them. But yes, thank you for coming. How do I read again? Oh, right. Christ. You can tell it's bad, huh? Every day I get stupider. It's just an eternal thing. I get more tired and more stupid as the day goes on. Not the day, the year, the life. As the life goes on. Why does the life go on? Anyway. Have a day. Bye. Fake.